welcome back to another APAC Hybrid Cloud Kopi Hour. We're back. It's been a little while since we've been online, but that's fine. So we're here now and excited to have a brand new guest and a new show. But first up, a quick reminder what we're talking about when we say Kopi. Kopi is a beverage that's very common in Asia and Southeast Asia and Singapore. So just so there's no confusion, we always do that. As a reminder, my name is August Simonelli. I'm a technical marketing manager here at Red Hat, based in Sydney in Australia. And as always, I'm joined by my favorite co-host, Dev Shanbag. Dev, how are you today?
I'm well, August. Thanks for asking. I'm really interested to hear what Andrew has to share today. Working with our customers in the region, specifically focusing on consulting, we take a lot of what reference architectures provide us and then work with our customers, discuss what their specific needs are, and then craft something that they want. And speaking with Andrew, there are certain things that specific and certain prescriptive things that we can use with validated patterns. So really interested to hear what Andrew has to share with us. So really excited.
Absolutely. So speaking of Andrew, hi, Andrew. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I've put your details up. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and where you are in the world.
I'm Andrew Beekhof. I'm a senior engineering manager in the ecosystem engineering team under ITMA, and I work on the validated patterns team. I'm based in Melbourne. The team is mostly in the US and EMEA, but I look after them from here. So.
Nice. All right. So the topic today is, I think, what do we call it? Validated patterns going beyond reference architecture. So where I actually want to start with this before we jump straight into validated patterns is what we're actually going beyond the reference architectures. So I wanted to share with you, Andrew, a little story, a little history of mine. Back in the day, I was, back when I started at Red Hat over 10 years ago, I was sent to a large Australian customer to install OpenStack. 10 years in OpenStack. So you know what that meant. It was utter chaos, and I had nothing to go by. So I was given a reference architecture by, I think, some engineering team. And we struggled through it, and we got there, and it came together. And so I was sort of introduced to the power of reference architectures. It's not this one, but it was one where we did some crazy stuff. We were even using a thing called PackStack. For those of you who know OpenStack, you might remember it. It was very early on. As things evolved and the industry got more intelligent or smart or whatever you want to say, reference architectures evolved. I even remember my first experience with the Red Hat team who would write these reference architectures. I think it was at, might have been a Red Hat summit in 2012 before I even joined Red Hat. And they were a great group. So eventually I knew one day I'd get to write my very own reference architecture, which we're probably going to rubbish the heck out of today, but I don't know. So I wound up writing this. What I did OpenShift on OpenStack, and we wrote a very traditional reference architecture. So I worked, quite closely with the engineering team and the marketing team and the product teams, and we came up with this document, right? So, and it went through all the details. We explained the use cases and why we needed a reference architecture, and we had a great diagram. And we set out this thing in stone of how reference architectures and how a customer should deploy these very, very complicated solutions. And that was my world of reference architectures. And to me, that still exists. So the question becomes, if this is a reference architecture, what then is a validated pattern? How are we moving beyond that? And before we throw it to you, Andrew, I'm curious, Dev, you're working with customers every day. Are they seeing documents like this exceptional reference architecture that I wrote 2 years ago? And how are they exploring the space? And then we go to Andrew. I'll take this off the screen. But yeah, so.
I think I do remember going through this particular reference architecture that you showed, August. It was a good starting point, and I think our customers really liked it because, like you said, OpenStack and OpenShift on OpenStack at the time, there was very little out there to look out for in terms of, hey, where do we really start, right? And now, fast forward today, there's so much out there. There's really a lot of knowledge out there, but in terms of wisdom, they try to bring in specialists in terms of, okay, take this and make it into something that is usable. I think our customers find value in reference architecture, but they want something specific as well. So that's what a lot of customers ask as well, in terms of, okay, we've seen this, but what do you think about this particular problem? How is this solved? So these the questions today that we come up are very specific from our point of view.
Right, and probably more dynamic, right? So our reference architecture it didn't have code. It was very much the first version did have cut and paste that you could do implementation details, but it was very much, this is how I did it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Andrew, if we're looking at something like a validated pattern, it's just a reference architecture, isn't it? I mean, come on, what's the difference? So maybe give us a little introduction into what they actually are, obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, reference architectures are a great tool. They've been popular for many years for a good reason. They're good at sparking initial interest from a customer and demonstrating sort of institutional knowledge. We understand this problem space. Look at the building blocks that we use, and we ship all these, or we know where to get all these, and we know how to combine them to solve your problem. But at the point you've got the customer convinced, then what? As you said, there's no code. So if you're already familiar with the code, you can look at the diagram and go, I know that. If you're starting fresh, that's a huge mountain to climb, to turn those slides into something that you can actually feel and touch. It's the gap between theory and practice. And when that happens, say you've got a group of people that are going to put together proof of concept. Meanwhile, your sales process is losing momentum. So we need something more. And so validated patterns are reference architectures grounded in customer needs, so they're not speculative, that you can actually install and you can count on to install. They installed yesterday, they're installing today, and they'll install tomorrow as well. So that's like the first level, that's the little introduction. Where do you want me to go from there?
Yeah. So you talk about grounded in customer needs, right? And that's a really good point, because we wrote the shift on stack reference architecture because we made assumptions, and yes, there was absolutely demand. But how do you get a little bit more into understanding those customer needs? I mean, where are you? Who are you in sync with to sort of bring that stuff out?
So we're in sync with a lot of different groups. One group is the chief architects, who are talking to, and the field generally, who are talking to customers every day, sending back, look, this is what we did. So we try not to invent things our own, because we're not the SMEs. You guys are the SMEs. So what has already been done at a customer site, that is sort of that's our starting point. How can we take what was already proven at a customer's site that met the customer requirements and make it a bit more generic and help sell the next deal and the deal after that? Not the first deal, because then we'd be sort of, again, into that territory of guessing and making assumptions.
Is there any particular criteria or methodology that you use? With cloud native, there's a documented app methodology, but in creating a validated pattern, is there something that you follow?
So all the patterns have got the same technical underpinnings. So I think the arrival of DevOps and GitOps, came at a good time for this idea, or this idea came at a good time for that. So we all in on GitOps, and what we try and do is we identified the smallest possible seed, which is give us an OpenShift cluster, can be completely blank, and then we'll put OpenShift GitOps on it and a single application. And from there, and that application will obviously point to a Git repo. And from there, everything else installs automatically. So it's sort of single click installation. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So grounded in GitOps, right? So you're actually you're writing code for the reference architecture.
Yeah. So this is code. So
And so how do you, I mean, code has a life, right? Code is organic, it changes. So how are you managing that? Like, I mean, are you developers? Is your team made up of engineers? Is it QE? Is it, how do you,
all of the above. We definitely have engineers, and we have QE people. So by automating this and sort of sticking to that kind of declarative model, we've made it really reliable to deploy. And at the point you've got something that you can reliably deploy, then you can start CIing it. You can put it in CI and you can run tests against it. And so one of our patterns, the first of our patterns, was Industrial Edge. And we've kept that going through 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 now. So I've kept it going across 6 different OpenShift releases. And when a new release comes out, we test it and we see what breaks, and we go, all right, that API changed from V1 Alpha 1 to V1 Alpha 2 or V1 Beta 2, and we have to tweak it occasionally to keep it going. But we can. The automation allows us to keep things going along.
Right. So that was cool there, right? It took me a minute. You said 4, 5, 6, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? So you're literally tracking OpenShift releases with these reference architectures at a what is it, a minor level, right? You're not obviously changing for every Z stream, but you're keeping.
Oh no, we run CI on each pattern at least once a week per platform that it's running on. So we're testing on AWS, GCP, and Azure at the moment. And so we'll test every one of those combinations every week against whatever the latest 4.13 OpenShift release is. So we'll see if things are breaking, and we'll get the latest versions of the operators, and we'll see if if there's any backwards compatibility issues that have crept in. And we've found a couple. We found them live during training as well. So that's always fun.
Right. So customers who are using these, I mean, they're getting, I don't mean to say this for free, but they're getting like updates. I mean, my reference architecture was wonderful, really was. But I couldn't update it every week. And if you looked at when I showed it, it was very much pegged into a certain version of OpenShift, and now we're working to update it, coming soon. But at the same time, so you're really just you're able to crank through that. Are you back and forth with customers on that? I mean, is that something that they're doing stuff and saying, hey, did you know, or are you mostly beating them to that?
Oh, we're usually beating them to that. We're not getting a lot of feedback from customers like that. Because we're running CI constantly. We're hitting it. I think there was a OpenShift GitOps change that had some adverse implications for us, and we found it like within an hour. Actually, no, it wasn't OpenShift GitOps. I'm dunking on that team unnecessarily. There was a release process outage which affected everyone, and we spotted it and we pinpointed it and got people on it like within an hour.
Right. So this is a great case of kind of like security, right? I don't want to see it. When you talk about proactive patching and being aware of things, and this is an opportunity where not hearing from customers means that you're helping, you're beating the problem. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So we really try and advocate we try and put ourselves in the customer's shoes. So like,
okay,
would this change affect a customer? Yes, then we need to deal with it too. We need to feed back to the product teams that this change, whatever the intention was, it would have broken customer scenarios like this. So we try.
So you're in lockstep with those product teams.
Yeah, we deal very closely with the product teams.
Are there any particular favorite or commonly used validated patterns? You mentioned Industrial Edge, but I mean, I'm just curious to know. Okay, this is one of the validated patterns that's used often. And the other question I had was, what is the next validated pattern that you are really excited about, which is coming up, which.
Okay, so patterns that are used the most common. There's probably two different answers there. Multi-cloud GitOps is probably the most used of all the patterns because it's the base of everything. It's pattern light, validated pattern light. It's the minimal viable pattern. It's got the framework and like the tiniest demo that we can stick on top. So in terms of when you're trying to build on top, there's the least amount that you need to get rid of before you start building.
So someone who's really new to the whole GitOps approach, this is perfect because they can start with this. Okay.
Yeah. So Industrial Edge was the first pattern, and that's all singing or dancing. That is huge. It's a tremendous amount of work for people, and yet still the same single-click kind of installation process. So they've all got the same installation process. Once you know how to work with one pattern, you know how to work with all of them. But the one that's probably getting the most traction and use at the moment is our DevSecOps pattern. That's security. It's very popular at the moment. So yeah, and so there's some things around that were announced at Summit that it dovetails in with nicely. It gives people something they can play with on-prem.
Are we also maintaining salsa levels like SLSA level 1, 2, 3? Does that come into validated patterns?
It's not something we've dealt with yet, no. Oh, and you also asked which one I'm excited about next. This is a bit of a left field one, but this is actually something one of our engineers is working on. It's an Ansible only GitOps pattern. So all our patterns to date have been around OpenShift, but technically, and the underpinning of GitOps on OpenShift is Argo CD. That's a pretty common piece. You don't strictly need Argo CD to do GitOps though. You can do GitOps with pretty much any sort of rules engine, and that includes Ansible Tower. So we're working on a pattern and a pattern framework that extends that kind of GitOps approach to non-container platform-based systems. So even if you're just doing RHEL, you can still bring that sort of GitOps approach to it. So that's one that I'm pretty excited about, seeing where that goes.
Yeah, see, that is really cool because I know that often we're speaking with customers and they'll say, we know we need to be more GitOps and DevOps, but we're not there yet. But I mean, we use Ansible because we automate. So you're bridging a gap there that I think will be exciting to watch because, yeah, I mean, the more ways for them to get things done with the tooling they understand and have, but the methodology that they need is going to be wonderful.
So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have something to say there, or at least like an MVP version, and then we'll be extending that next quarter.
Right. So, and that makes me wonder, and something I did want to ask is, so how do you decide which patterns? I mean, like, is there a lot of pattern choices, or is it kind of like, what do we do? Or, how is that being handled? Like, what's that like in your team when you guys sit down and go, okay, there's 5 of us, or 10 or 20, I don't know, but what do we focus on? How are you doing that?
Right. So you specifically mean, where do we start? How do we decide what to work on? Not how does someone else decide what to start?
Right. I tell you, we need an OpenShift on OpenStack pattern.
Yeah.
What goes into the process? But not that one. But like what's that like? I mean, are there a lot of patterns that you guys have on your backlog? What's it look like?
Yeah. So I'm gonna evade first. We've actually spent quite a significant amount of time this year doing enablement, so that we are not the only people that know how to make patterns. Because we're 5 guys. We can't do everything. There's more ideas out there than we can do, and so the more people that are able to do it, the better. So that allows us to be a bit more strategic, a bit more picky about what we get involved with, because it's no longer about why should this be a pattern. We could say, this is a great idea for a pattern, but the question is now, why is it us creating a pattern? How about you create the pattern? So that's like a first level of defense. But once it's crossed that threshold, it's like, this is potentially something we need to be involved in. It's a multi-dimensional prioritization process. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, the first criteria is, are there multiple Red Hat products involved? We work for Red Hat. This is just part of the territory for that. So we definitely look for multiple products. We don't want single. There's product teams doing demos and putting the demos together. We don't need to go there. So we concentrate on multi-product solutions. And then we look at how applicable that architecture is to other customers, other verticals, other patterns. Is there something that we can do? Can we use this work as an excuse to write this thing that we can actually make use of in other patterns as well? So these are some of the considerations that get looked at. How similar is it to an existing pattern? We'd rather spend the time doing something that opens up a whole new sort of set of use cases for people than minor variations on existing ones. We look at demand and opportunity. Is there a time-based opportunity that we can get involved with, a sales motion or a customer engagement that would really amplify? We'd be amplifying them and they'd be amplifying us. So a lot of these factors go into it. So it's a process.
It's a process, and so this is an important point: is these patterns aren't Red Hat products, right? I mean, they use Red Hat products, but they're not an owned by Red Hat kind of thing. Which is why I wanted to look at the hybrid cloud, the website, right? Because we were talking about this obviously as we were preparing for the show. And as I was looking at the site, I mean, you guys, this is sort of the, I don't know what you call this, the upstream version of the site. I mean, this is the available site. I noticed across them that when I make my choice, when I'm looking at my patterns, I can do like different types, a validated by Red Hat, a community pattern. I'm looking at industries. I'm looking at products. Can you talk to us a bit about this section here where I'm looking at these validated patterns and community patterns that are showing up on this site, and what that means around dev aspect SLA, around support, around that kind of stuff? A bit more about, I mean, if I'm seeing community, you've mentioned it a bit, but I can get involved in this, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Look at these things, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, what is that about? Like, yeah.
I mean, there's more things that we can do. We want people to be able to write their own patterns, and we're happy to. We want to help promote your work. Where do I go from here? It's every validated pattern represents a commitment for ongoing testing and bug fixes and triage. So there's a finite pool of patterns that we can do, that we can maintain, but that shouldn't limit the number of patterns that can exist. And so for everything else, we give them a community designation, and we try and make it really easy for patterns or for people to create community patterns, and we do that by basically lowering the threshold. We have, when we do a validated pattern, there needs to be test plans, there needs to be presentations, there needs to be recorded demos, scripts for like, once you've deployed it, this is how you show it off. At this level, at the community level, it's more about like, hey, I've done something and we think it's really cool, and it uses the same technical underpinnings. So we'd like to make it available to other people. I'm floundering.
Right.
Help me out.
No, that's great. That's great. So we talked earlier about this, that if someone in the community actually has a validated pattern, they've been working on something or something, you've actually got a way to reach out to share that pattern and with the team.
Yeah. So there are some implementation requirements, but they are quite low. It's pretty much don't go hard coding secrets and things about your environment, and you use the products in the ways that they're intended, But once you cross that, like a database is not a messaging layer. Let's not go there. But as long as you're doing things, pretty reasonably, it can be a community pattern. Once you've got a community pattern and you think, this is so great, and everyone around you saying, hey, I want this, this is something that should get the validated treatment. We're trying to do this as an open process. So we've got hybrid cloud patterns at googlegroups.com. So it's linked on the site somewhere, probably under contact. And you can say, hey, there's this pattern, and we think, it's worthy of validate, that ongoing investment of validation. And so that's where we'll have a transparent conversation about, pros and cons. But yeah, anyone could create a pattern. Anyone could submit a pattern for validation. We've had SAs, we've had consultants, we've had partners have taken patterns and improved them. They've created their own new ones. I'm not sure if I should say names, but it's definitely an open process, and we want your best ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the different topics on here that I have on this page, and they, between the validated and the community, they're so varied. I mean, this connected vehicle, and when you dig into it, it's opening up straight to GitHub. It's fascinating. Like it's so dynamic. Speaking of back to my shift on stack architecture, which is literally a PDF. This is so exciting to me. I'm not a consultant anymore, but when I was, and same for you, Dev, when we were down in the trenches, to have this kind of toolkit and the support of knowing that, and I'll go back to it, the testing that was being done. Like when I looked at one of these, look at this, you're showing the different versions things are being validated on. Am I seeing AWS here as well? I mean,
yep.
Of course, right? I'm seeing platforms.
Yeah.
It's
so
just a whole different way. Yeah.
That's how we avoid, unintentionally assuming things about the AWS platform that don't hold on other platforms. So we just test multiple platforms, and that's how we find those things. And if you click on status, you'll see like this is our live CI dashboard up next to the search bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is every pattern that we've got.
Really?
This is
as you kind of glanced off it, but yeah, like all the code, this is all public code. There's nothing hidden here. It's all everything's out there for everyone to see, and you can take it and use it, and that doesn't cost you anything. And you can improve it, and if you'd like, we'd love it if you sent any of the improvements back, which some people do. You don't have to. So
yeah. But knowing that this is getting out in the world, whether it comes back, and we, like you said, we hope it does, because it opens up discussion and it makes just everyone better, and it makes these platforms better, so that consumers and our customers are in safer, more reliable environments. But so that's cool. But like, I love the testing across the different platforms, because I mean, OpenShift is so portable. It's so multi-cloud. So these things need to work that way, because that translation layer that OpenShift is providing it's just invaluable. And so the reference architectures need to do that. Validated patterns need to do that. And I really love that. Just digging around the site is so kind of rewarding. Again, I'll put that back up because I put it in the chat, but because it's like you said, Andrew, I know people know that we don't hide anything, but it really is there. I mean, you saw me link straight to, to the code. It's there. It's the logic, the thinking, the documentation. It's a DevOps reference architecture. It really is.
Yeah. So it's a living, breathing architecture.
Yeah, and I just think that's really, really cool.
Very hard to do GitOps without the Git.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's terrific. Now I know that you guys and you have a YouTube page, and I'll just put the link to it up here. But tell me about recording demos. Like, is the team enjoying getting that kind of stuff out there? I never had to do that for a reference architecture. I kind of published it and moved on. So,
I think there's I think some of the team really enjoys it, and some of the team really doesn't. And you know, it goes with the territory. Look, it's good experience, and it's just a really powerful way to demonstrate some of this stuff. But yeah, there's a bit of variety there. Some people just record the screen, what's happening on the screen, and some people get involved and do they speak over it, and there's some high production values and so on.
Looking at repos, someone would want to look at how it is all put together, and a YouTube video is really a good way to for someone who is new to validated patterns to just understand how the pieces are put together. I think that's great.
And seeing how little work you do, and then the end result, like the sprawl of Argo objects, particularly if you're talking over the top of it while it's going in the background, and it's amazing where automation can get you, and how some of these patterns are multi-cluster solutions, and the pattern just rolls it all out.
You did, just quickly, August, so you did talk about validated patterns by Red Hat. I just had this question. Customers using subscriptions, as customers, can they call support if they needed support? I know, we go through the whole rigorous validation, testing, performance, scale, all that. But what if a customer had some problem or some questions, and are they able to call support and say, this validated pattern, I need help?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Today, right now, you cannot call up and ask for industrial edge support. You can call up and say, I've got an AMQ streams problem. I've got an OpenShift GitOps problem. I've got an OpenShift pipelines problem. I've got an OpenShift problem. You can call up and say all those things. You can call, I forget who you can call up and say, I've got a Seldon problem to the partner that ships Seldon. I can't remember who that is. But yeah, you cannot call up and say, I've got an industrial edge problem. I've got a medical diagnosis problem. Maybe we'll have something to say about that in the future, but no plans, no public plans about that yet.
Right. And that's formal support. I mean, if a customer's got a consulting team on site and they're going, look, whether the customer said, this is great, I want to use this, or the consulting team is saying, we're going to work with this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess they're not getting an SLA or, support, but they're part of a team that's backed by real people, your team, a real community. We know this model. So I think that's quite exciting to think that you really are, you're not on your own. It's really.
Yeah, I like to have like a glass half full kind of approach to it. Some people go, oh, it's good supported, so I can't use it. But the reality is, you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a group of other people that are using this every day. And they're a motivated team of people that they want to find and fix problems. If you find a problem, they are intrinsically motivated to fix that problem. They don't want to see it broken any more than you do. And just the comfort that you're on the golden path, that other people are using the same thing, same products in the same way that you are, that has to have value.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the open source model, right? They're saying it would be like saying an upstream community doesn't support us. Of course it does. It's a and again, I'll put this back up because I think if you're out there and you're looking to interact, even how you've set this up through Google Groups, it makes it clear you're not throwing out you're not risking your IP or giving it to some corporate whoever. It's very much a team and a community. And I guess I'll admit, I first heard about these ages ago at Red Hat. And we were talking about that. We had just finished this reference architecture and they were talking about evolving them. And I'm thinking, what does this mean? And to have seen that change and where it's gone is just really good. It really fits, what we've always have, all of us have been at Red Hat a while, but have always been used to. But to see it kind of almost come to an area I didn't expect it to be possible to come to is neat. I'm curious if you have a shout out to some of the people who kind of, brought that here, because these are some people I know I've worked with in the past, but where did this come from, in the deep or dark days, so to speak?
I think probably the genesis was probably Nick Barset and William Henry. I think William Henry was in the portfolio architecture team at the time. Hence, we try and work closely with them. But it's really their brainchild. And I like to think I brought a little bit of technical expertise to it as well. So, I'm a manager now, but I did have a technical background. And I spent a lot of time building up the RHEL HA community, so clustering. So I brought some of that mindset of community building to this as well, and I think that's some of that's leaked out as well in a good way.
Yeah, I think so too. Because the portfolio, it's the portfolio architecture team, and I think that's really important because I know working with them in the past, the fact that they were pulling in all the pieces. And that they're now in lockstep with engineering is super cool, because that is what it is. Our customers are doing that, so we're doing that. It's natural. It didn't happen one because of the other. It's just a natural progression. So I think it's worked out really well. And I mean, there is actually a formal Red Hat page for validated patterns. So there's a nicely branded page. I think there's even a snappy little marketing video on there.
Yeah, I think
with
that's
animation and everything.
Oh yeah,
that's.
We've got a few people excited, and people are quite happy to contribute their time and resources to promoting.
Yeah, I think so, and I think for as folks watch this show, there's a lot of levels to get involved in here, and that it feels like the barrier to entry of involvement is quite low. Like I feel like I could be part of something like this, and I'm in the marketing side of the house. And I say that with a bit of a joke because I feel like I do know a bit more. But so I like that. And, I think it's important that especially our field teams and customers who see this realize that these things are out there. Have a read, check them out, and understand the community that's behind them, because they're going to evolve what you do. And not only are they going to give you great solutions, they're going to teach you how to get to good solutions and great solutions. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And hopefully these allow you to spend more time on higher value tasks, not just deploying a few operators. And don't spend your time getting OpenShift installed. Spend your time showing the power of OpenShift to the customer. So we don't try and be everything. We try to give you 80% of the start of the solution, and then every pattern. It's not something you're going to take to production unmodified. You're going to have to tailor it to whatever the customer's needs are. But hopefully, we've given you that starting point. And just back to your ease of use point, we really do fight against entropy. Everything we're doing, software is a constant fight to are we making this too complex? As you add more power and flexibility, it's very easy for complexity to creep in. And so we're constantly fighting against that and trying to make sure the hard things are possible, but the easy things are easy.
Yeah, I like that. And then I think, again, when you bringing this to our customers, but when our customers can start using this, they really are able to focus on their own needs and get their products better and such, but also learn great process from something like this. Not only cultural process around being part of that contribution cycle, because they might not be necessarily, you might have infrastructure guys and gals who are who can contribute back to a pattern because they've hit something in their industry that needs it, but they're not ready to compile their own kernel just yet, but they can still get involved with something like this. And I find that really exciting. And when we talk about going beyond reference architectures, I think that really does that, because it makes it so living and breathing. And I'm really, really fascinated by that, which is why I was super excited to even though it took us a while with, various delays and stuff, but to have this conversation, because I want folks to just find those URLs and to start to read through them, because once you start doing that, the aha moments just boom, boom, boom. They just start. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's appreciated, and it's a fun format we have here, and it's worked out pretty well. So I hope your team jumped on. I hope you are mocked brutally when your next team meeting comes. I don't think they have anything to mock you for, but I really hope they do, because that's always fun. But no, I do hope that they had a chance to join. We did have one person in the chat say hello, so I always like to say, let's go ahead and put that on there and say, for Sachin, greetings, hello, and thank you for joining. If you're still out there, it's good to have viewers. Really appreciate that. So anyway, if you have any final last words, Andrew, I think you've basically covered that off really nicely, but please go ahead.
No, just we welcome everyone's perspectives and ideas, and there's only so many of them we can do, but we certainly want to help you. If you're interested in creating a pattern, we'd certainly love to help you do so.
Cool. I hear you. Well, Dev, here we are again. We've got some exciting shows coming up. We're in planning some nice ones. So some stuff on ACM, so Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager for Kubernetes, and some other areas in the telco space. I don't know if there's any others we want to reveal just yet. There's some interesting demos and labs coming up. So keep an eye on that playlist, like, subscribe, all those various things. But one thing I do want to mention is next week, we have our first ever Japanese language stream. So we're doing the hybrid cloud Kopi Hour Japan, and the team from in Japan is doing a really neat session on cloud native. It is in Japanese, so if you don't speak the language, you won't be able to follow. But it's really great because we're getting these voices from APAC out there. So I've put the short URL to their brand new playlist. That is at 1 p.m. Japanese Standard Time next Friday, July 7th. So I'm really excited. Other than that, always keep an eye on the streaming calendar. As I like to do, Dev, if you have any final words, please let us know what's on for the weekend, or just say goodbye.
I just wanted to thank Andrew for coming and sharing thoughts on validated patterns. Really appreciate it. Really excited that every month we're coming up with these shows. And it's out there, really interesting topics. So glad to be part of this. Thanks.
Yeah, heaps of fun. All right, folks. Well, thank you everyone for joining and for viewing this in the future. Andrew, as Dev said, thank you for your time today and your passion, and for being such a great advocate of open source and making this happen, and just for coming on the show. I mean, I've always heard wonderful and great things about you and the teams in previous roles as well. So thank you for being here and spending some time with us today.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right. Cheers all. Have a good one, and we'll catch you next time for some Kopi. See ya. Bye.
Bye.